Hello, welcome back. Well, it's now 1987 and we're checking out Mercury Lynx. Um, so this is the post facelift car, and mm, I don't know if it's going to mention that prior year was the year for the XR3, and I believe that carried on until '88. But we'll go through this book and find out. But right on the front cover, there's a pretty crummy photo of a Mercury Lynx from 1987. And in traditional fashion, this is a full-size poster. And the Lynx, even in the half that it was given, it's barely in it. It only takes up half of the shot. Not even. Actually, if you move the car down, it takes up a quarter of the shot. That's bad. It should have been a third or better. Typical camera rules. And then if we zoom out, what is all this? Your back cover is this. What? I find no interest in two men sharing a pair of burgers or whatever's going on here. Mercury, the shape you want to be in. Do you want to be an old man eating a burger with your 32-year-old son? I don't know. Anywho, moving forward. Yep, here we go again. We have this ginormous photo, and our car, because this is a car catalog, our car only occupies 1/4 of it. So if you take the car and move it up towards the top, it only occupies half of this page, and this whole page is only half of the whole thing. So what is this? So our commitment to quality and safety isn't just something written on paper, it's built in the cars. Oh, okay. Well, you had to say something to match the cinematograph shot. Cinematic shot, I should say. Okay. There's clear evidence that it's been working. Our cars have been the highest quality American built cars for 6 consecutive years, according to a 1986 survey of car owners. 6 consecutive years. So it's 1987. This goes back to 1983. What was wrong with 81 and 82? From 81 to 83, these didn't change at all. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah, so this is just a page of outrageous claims. Here we go again. And it's only getting worse. Look at this. On the bottom third, so not even occupied, the bottom third of the page, not even half, third, is an escort. And you can barely see it. This is some horrible photo quality. Okay, let's just we'll show you what I'm talking about here, huh? Photo quality. Oh, heart melting. What? GTA San Andreas isn't much worse than this. And what is all this content? This page has nothing, and it's all blurry and fuzzy. I'm getting nothing out of this. So much fun to drive, you may forget to congratulate yourself for driving such a practical car. What? Can be economical without being boring. Well, it's hard to tell. It's really freaking hard to tell. It's overhead cam engine with front-wheel drive, rack and pinion steering, fully independent suspension. It has all the basic elements. Yes, basic elements required to let you have a little fun behind the wheel. It's also yet designed to keep costs down. Scheduled maintenance for the car in the first 50,000 miles of normal operation is estimated to be less than $230. That's because at this point you've had 8 to 10 oil changes, and one timing belt. At this point, you do with the timing belt. All that equates to that much. Seems about right. Clutch and brakes are self-adjusting. Chassis is lubed for life, and spark plugs need changing every 30,000 miles. Oh, my apologies. At this point, you've done the spark plugs once, and they're about due their second time around. Maintenance on these guys is extremely minimal. Finally have a decent shot of one of these cars, and it's a full interior shot. This one's actually pretty neat. There's not too many overhead camera angles inside any of these books, but this one's quite nice. And it shows off a bunch of things. It shows off the quality of the seats. You get to see some of the dashboard, steering, center console, which this one doesn't have. This one has the most basic surround for the automatic, where it's just this little plastic pedestal, and then the automatic shifter sits inside it. And then the rear handbrake has the even smaller plastic surround, plastic trim. And then behind that is what looks to be a padded vinyl armrest. They might have all been padded vinyl. And in the back, it shows off our split folding rear bench. These are pretty fantastic. And these had started in 86 for sure. They might have been out in 85. So 85 and a half for sure. These were available. 85 and prior, they were almost always the one-piece single-fold bench. But what's so special about these is not only do you have two halves that fold down, but because the lower cushion folds forward first, kind of like an excursion or an expedition, your bottom bun, you pull a strap or something, and this guy goes pop, and now your top one can fold down so that the top of it is completely flush with the rest of the cargo area. That's crazy important. That's how you actually have usable space back there instead of this ramp at the end. Here. Hey, yes, we do still have the XR3. This one's in black, and the photo quality is terrible. My camera's actually making it a lot better than it really is. Maybe just because I need to get closer. Yeah. Yeah, and that's not my camera. That's the photo. Because look at this guy. Oh, oh, it's eye-watering and heart-melting. Oh, yes. And then you get to this one. Ugh, fuzzy. And again, only occupies half the page, and that half of the page is only half the shot. What's all this for? So it makes it hard to want to even read all this crap. With Lynx XR3, driving becomes a lot more than just a convenient way to get somewhere. I suppose. So the XR3 is the sport half of the Lynx line. You do have a 1.9 higher output engine with multi-port fuel injection. At this point, they're claiming 115 horsepower. So these must have the roller lifter cams, because in the Escorts, it's only 110 horsepower until 1989. 1989, they standardized the roller cams across all the CVH engines. But we found out in the 86 book, this one, that the XR3 actually came standard with the roller lifter cam. And that means that out of the gate it had that 115 horsepower. With it, you also get 15-inch wheels on a Handsome. They're very cool 15-inch cast aluminum wheels. They're what we call the pinwheels. They're these 4-spoke wheels. And again, this is a horrible shot. We can't even see them, for cripe's sakes. What? Damn late 80s Ford. Almost as bad as 90s Ford. Alright, here we go. Sporting XR3 interior. Yeah. So if you watch my video on the 86s, this is an actual leather steering wheel. You can tell by the stitching that's not fake stitching. Because if this book has a photo of the base model wheel, I'll show it. But the base model wheel is identical to this. But instead of being leather wrapped and sewn. It's just molded rubber without the stitching line. And then it's coated in a vinyl. And it's perfectly smooth, kind of like the center of this steering wheel is. 87, we have a new wiper system, or at least in the XR3. Our instrumentation is slightly different. We're back to what the earliest DXBs had, within reason. All of our numbers are white except for the orange line and red line. But interestingly, a lot of our sub numbers are blue, and our needles are all white. Ergonomics. Well, there's not much to ergonomics in these things. You have a single mold shift boot. This one finally actually has numbers colored on it. That's special. Brags about the sport seats, which look cool, but they're the same. They date back to 1983. They're 4 years old. And that was about it for the XR3. It's their most impressive car, and they only spend half a page on it times 2. Here we have another problematic shot. Jesus, this one's just like the first shot, where okay, we can see it's a Lynx, kind of, but that's all we can see. This one must be a higher trim, being it's got that chrome stripe above the grille and the body molded mirrors. This one only has the driver's side mirror. That's right, passenger mirror is still optional in 87, and then no stripe over the top of the grille. But again, another wasted shot. We have all this standing in the rain, left the car door open in the rain, getting all of our comfy cloth nice and wet and moldy. And we talk about energy absorbing materials on instrument panel, steering wheel, doors, center console, sun visors. What the heck are we talking about here? What? Starts with a unitized body construction that combines the car's body and frame in a strong unified structure. The doors feature double panel welded construction with a high strength steel beam inside. This enables each door to withstand a test of load of more than 4,000 pounds. Okay. First off, that's baloney. These doors are the exact same as what was put in 1981. They did not change. They're hefty, they're strong, but that's an outrageous claim. That's saying that your load test, you could set 2 of these cars on top of that door, and only once you put the second car on there, it will yield. It will hold the first car and a half perfectly fine. That's bull. Energy absorbent materials on this is also baloney. The instrument panel, so the whole dashboard, it's a plastic skeleton with some real thin metal support, but it's a plastic skeleton for the most part, with about half an inch, maybe 5/8 of an inch, but mostly half an inch of foam over the whole thing, and then your decorative vinyl is over that. So these are padded vinyl dashboards. It's been like that since 81 and stays like that until 1990. Steering wheel, this one's leather, so it's not even soft and squishy like the molded rubber ones. Energy absorbent material on the doors. The doors only have a 1/4 inch of foam padding, and that's only so that they look fancy. It's not functional, it's for looks. Center console, I don't even know what they're talking about here. The center console is entirely plastic. That's not energy absorbing. Seatbelts are. And for 87, what should be available are the automatic seatbelts that, as they rest, the shoulder belt portion is down here on the A pillar, but when you get in the car and close the door, it goes and it goes up to the top of the B pillar. And federal mandate regulations require only 2.5 mile per hour impact bumpers. Every Lynx is equipped with a 5 mile per hour impact bumper front and rear. Here's a big thing you'll find heavily advertised across all 1980s cars and even some 1990s stuff. In the 70s, it was, correct, what, 70, 73, 75? Somewhere in there is mandated that bumpers had to withstand a 5 mile per hour impact. And what that means is they can go in, but they have to return to shape. But also that means that no other body damage could be visible at the 5 mile per hour mark. At some point, they had the U.S. government had reduced that to a 2.5 mile per hour bumper impact. So while these cars from the factory in 1981, while they were being produced in 1980, came with 5 mile per hour bumpers, the government had loosened its restriction to half. They kept these bumpers because why wouldn't you? You wouldn't take a step backwards in safety when you have already established, your bar. And a lot of manufacturers were like that. Volvo, in particular, they rave about their 5 mile per hour impact bumpers, and they'll have like comparison charts and ads of how the Volvo is so much safer than the comparative Volkswagen, because the Volvo actually has the 5 mile per hour bumpers, but the Volkswagen, it only has the 2.5 mile bumpers. Oh my God. Well, that's because it was standardized and those cars were built while that standardization was intact. It's just an empty claim. Or I should say it's a claim no one should have to make. Here we're finally talking about the wagon. I know it's really hard to tell in the shot because you can see we're 50 feet away from it, and we're checking out what Phil Collins look like. I don't know. So again, it's only talking about space. When you talk about the wagons, it's space. You have 58.8 cubic feet of cargo space when the bench is down, roughly 28 when the bench is up. That's all there is to it. Technological features. Hey, cool. So we finally get a glimpse of what's inside this XR3. The fancy engine, the 1.9 EF high output engine. So this is that 110 horsepower for the Escorts, but the 115 horsepower Mustang keeper upper. Very, very fantastic engine. It talks about a little bit. 115 horsepower in this one, only because it has the roller rockers. The new, at the time, ECU that has the ability to process 250,000 operations per second. These were, well acclaimed ECUs at the time. Looking back on them, as the years go on, they have their flaws. But the ones in the Escorts are generally pretty stout compared to the ones in like Mustangs. Those ones seem to suffer quite a bit. I don't know if that's a use thing, because if you have a Mustang, you're going to be driving it as such, versus these guys are generally commuters that actually, that you can have fun in once in a while. So there could be something said about the amount of voltage that's going through these, and then the amount of load that's put on them, how many cycles per second they really do have to do. The higher your RPMs, the closer you get to this number. We talk about more and more of the overhead stuff. Yes, because even the diesels are overhead cam, and it's all 8-valve stuff. Rear independent suspension, the dual line braking, and then we finally start getting into our normal specs, and I presume on the next page options. Oh, options here. So specifications. At this point, we no longer have the carbureted 1.9. We have the 1.9 CFI. They call it just the EFI. but we call it CFI because there's a lone central fuel injector. So it replaces the 2-barrel carburetor with, if you can imagine, a carburetor that only has one bore, and above that butterfly valve in the middle of it, there is one lone fuel injector that just goes. It's suspended over that valve. If you open up the airbox, you can see it. It's kind of floating right above it, like some sort of Mac cannon kind of deal. And it just squirts right onto that throttle valve. It's a very inefficient form of EFI, but it is very fuel efficient some way, somehow, because you're replacing the carburetor that's technologically very similar with something that's just a tiny bit more controlled. So it equates to some wicked fuel economy. These guys get 40 some mpg, no problem. But the horsepower is no different than the carb. We're talking 86 versus 86, and then 100 foot-pounds versus 100. Otherwise, they're about the same, even though these utilize a totally different head and piston combination. I don't believe it actually is 9-to-1 on this lower engine, but anywho, the next engine up, that's the EFI high output. 115 horsepower and 115 foot-pounds of torque. This is the second most powerful CVH ever made. And then there's also the diesel. Whopping 52 horsepower and 82 foot-pounds of torque. The Pooch. Granted, it revs to 6,000 RPMs, but you don't get there. And you don't get there in a quick fashion. 4-speed with 4th gear overdrive, so they finally brought the 4-speed back. 86, that wasn't even available in the Lynxes anyways. 5-speed is pretty much standard though. 3-speed automatic, not available with the GT engine or the diesel. So while 86 you could have an XR3 automatic, you can't in 87. Going on, I should mention that the XR3 has improved suspension over the other models, and it's actually the only car with the rear sway bar. Interesting stuff. We go over some basic dimensions. Nothing too notable. Cargo capacity is a big thing across each of the 3 cars. A couple things that don't really matter. EPA disclaimers, whatever. But here's our option sheet. Now it looks expansive, but that's only because this manual's kind of small. When we compare it to our 85 and our 86 book, this is actually even smaller. But let's give a quick glimpse here. Once the camera focuses in, so you can see each of the engine options and how you can get each. Same with the transmissions. And of course, the diesel can only have the 5-speed. It's just how it is. I'll say if there's something notable, but for the most part, there just isn't. It's 1987. Ford's taking away a lot of options in their cars in general, and in these economy cars, there's next to nothing. That way they can keep costs down and try to keep their profits up and moving forward. Because at this point, the Taurus is out, and they've spent many billions, with a B, billions, on that car, trying to make that the end-all be-all of sedans. And it worked. But because of that, every other vehicle they made in that era was put on the back burner. Here we actually get into equipment packages. There's not much. And when we get into colors, there's, again, not very much. It's the late 80s, so your typical Ford is only going to come in about 7 colors. What's surprising, though, is you have all these optional clear coat colors. These are the fancy colors, and you'd never know in the photos because the photos were horrible. But if you do get, I'll show it to you. If you do get the exterior paint color books, you can actually view the colors in full and in detail the way you would expect to find them. So let's go over to this one here, 1987 Ford. This would be the same colors as your 87 Mercury, but let's check this out. These are actual paint swatches. So you can see that they are finished in a clear coat, glass clear coat, and you can see the metallic flake in each of these. Sadly, in 1987, they're going real lax on the metallic flake, but you can see them in a couple of these colors. This medium red in particular is fantastic. Same with the silver blue, the dark shadow blue, and this dark top. Everything else is a little bit more subdued. And the camera doesn't show these the best because there's such small swatches, and I only have the light in my living room. But some of these are rather premier, but for the most part, they're like this. It's just bland, just plain color, and it's all very dark red, dark blue, beige, or it's gray. It's just how it is. It's the late 1980s. That's where things are now. But for the most part, that's everything. So I'll let you guys go because that covers the whole manual. Let's get back to it. This is our final page, whatever the heck is going on here. And I know I rag on this manual a bunch, but that's because it is just totally disappointing. Especially when you compare it to prior years that had much better photos, much better quality. They have more information. Just boo. At some point I will get some 88 and newer books, but as far as my channel goes, I draw a line at 1990. Maybe they'll change later, but I try keeping it relevant for you guys. So everything I do is the 81 to 90 Escorts, the EXPs, just because those two are completely compatible. If I go outside of that, I kind of lose my compatibility, and I start going down this rabbit hole of the Z-Tech stuff, the ZX lines, all the Mazda-based Escorts that have no practicality in my car except for the engine. They don't even share wheels. There's a lot going on. Then you jump forward to the Focuses, and they kind of share wheels and engines, but they don't really share suspension or transmissions. And it's just too much. But all this stuff, all perfectly compatible. Amazing. So we'll leave it at that, and keep an eye out for those. It'll take me a while to fetch some, but in the meantime, you're welcome to view all of them from FordHeritage.com. You can view all of these in full color in free PDF form, or even free to download. So do check those out. They're a spectacular service that Ford offers. Otherwise, if you want to get a physical version, you can always get these on eBay, somewhere between the $2 and $10 mark most of the time. But yeah, have a good one.